Hello, everyone, and welcome to More Than Your Eyes Can See, an exhibition that celebrates contemporary photography from the Arab world. The exhibition features 15 photographers from across the region and its diaspora. And the title actually came from the director of the Arts and Culture Center here at MEI. I thought it spoke really beautifully to what the exhibition is really all about and what ties all of these diverse artists' work together, which is the intimate perspectives on various social, political, environmental, and very personal perspectives that they provide. And it's also about the invitation that their work gives to viewers to really think and question what they know about the region as well. So we start with Yemeni photographer Amira Tamimi, and this is his series La La Land, which he photographed in his hometown of Sana'a. And his goal with this series is really to take viewers out of the limitations that society can often put on people and take them into a dreamlike state. And I think it's a very kind of surrealist and futurist love letter to his home city of Sana'a. Okay, and then we move on to Palestinian Jordanian photographer Fara Food. This series is called Just Because I Cried Doesn't Mean I Am Strong. And it's the second series that she's worked with men in the tourism industry in Jordan. This was shot in Petra. And in her work and this series, she really examines the effects of the tourism industry on these communities and how the experiencer can often shape the identity, oneself of identity. And she also addresses Orientalism and exoticization as well. And we have a work here by celebrated Palestinian photographer and Jerusalemite Rola Halawani. This is a very personal series for the artist called For You, My Mother, and it attempts to incorporate her mother's wisdom into photographs, and she collages archival images of Palestinians who lived in Palestine before 1948 and places them as sort of like guiding spirits above landscape images that she takes of Palestine as well. And then we introduce the first environmentally focused piece in the exhibition. This is a series of work by Tunisian documentary photographer Ziad Ben Romdan, and he addresses desertification and the encroachment of sand on towns in southern Tunisia. And his work is very humanistic, and he often uses high contrast black and white photography. And in keeping with the theme of environmentalism, we introduce Cause Collective, which is a collective of 4 Moroccan photographers whose work is really about research and storytelling, and they really intertwine their personal perspectives and experiences as well. So we start with Saif Kosmet, who focuses on the effects of climate change and globalization on the Moroccan oasis and its ecosystem. And he actually interacts with his photographs and physically adds things that are local to the areas that he photographs, such as fire or acid or palm dates, to further speak to the permanent and potentially reversible effects of climate change in the region. And then we move on to Iman Jamil, whose work is also focused on environmentalism, but additionally cultural heritage. This series is called 80 Miles to Atlantis, and in it she really speaks to the lack of cultural heritage protection in this area of Tarfiyah, which is along the coastline and across from Spain, and the mythical town of Atlantis that is supposedly buried underneath the water as well. And we go back to the theme of the oasis with Mohammed Khalito's series, Hooked to Paradise. Mohammed uses medium format film photography to, similarly to Saif, address the effects of climate change on the Moroccan oasis, and also a focus on the inhabitants as well. And he's really trying to speak to how complicated and multi-layered these changes are on the communities that he photographs there. And the final artist in Cause Collective is Yasmin Hatimi, and her work is very dreamlike and poetic, and she often addresses Moroccan masculinity and attempts to introduce to viewers new perspectives on that. This is a series called The New Romantics, and this was inspired by the artist's own experience in buying flowers in the market in her hometown. And she takes her negative experiences and kind of flips it by taking these flower boys who sell her the flowers and asking them to pick out their favorite flower and then to consider who they might give it to and what they might say to that person. And next we have another Moroccan photographer, Ismail Zaydi. This is our NFT in the exhibition. He's a photographer who often works, as you can see, with a lot of fabric, perspective, and minimalism to in and around his home in Marrakesh, and he often collaborates with his family to create his body of work. And now we move on to Najla Saeed, who's an Egyptian photographer, and similarly to Fara Food and to Yasmin Hatimi, she kind of questions what we think we know about femininity or masculinity. And this is her series Ukhti Ya Ukhti, or in English, Sister Oh Sister. And in it, she creates a new kind of feminism based on her own experience on the streets of Cairo in her hometown. And now we move into the vestibule, in which we have 4 very intimate stories and perspectives, starting with Algerian photographer Fateh Harawi. He has been documenting the social and cultural experiences of football stadiums across Algeria, and he really captures like the male visceral experience as well as the youth angst, in particular in this series called Stadium Philia. And another artist who works in high contrast black and white often is Iraqi artist Amir Hasan. This is a series called Above the Damage that he shot during the October 19th revolution, which was the youth-led protest movement in Baghdad, where he is from. And from protests, we move on to another very different style, but another intimate series focusing on youth experiences in the region with Samar Hasboun's series Errant Doves. This was taken during the COVID-19 pandemic in Palestine, and as the country started to go under lockdown, Samar's work is very humanistic and very sensitive to the communities that she captures in her work, and here she has she documents the experiences of several of her queer friends during the COVID-19 pandemic, while at the same time addressing how their experiences intersects with the political upheavals in Palestine that were occurring at the same time. And we move on to a very different style, but also continuing with the theme of intimacy with Iman Ali's work. She's an Omani artist and photographer. This is a very personal series for the artist that is a series of self-portraits that is ongoing. And in it, she is both the protagonist and the director. And her work is very cinematic and also incorporates elements of representation as an Arab woman. And she often addresses the intricacies of Khaliji culture in her work as well. And then we conclude with this standout piece by Saudi photographer Mohammed AlFaraj. This piece was actually originally intended to be installed outside. This work is called Guardians of the Oasis. And in the work, Mohammed is taking both inspiration from his hometown, which is an oasis in Saudi Arabia, and the people who work on the land and protect it, and also its ancestors. And this work is wheat pasted onto the wall, and the original intention was for it to be outside and to experience the same degradation and changes that the Saudi oasis has been experiencing over the past several years and decades.